Do you think this is funny? Do you think this is a game? Go ahead and try it again. We'll see who wins this game. Try it, big man! Try it!
The miry UK government, especially under recent Labour Party leadership, has become a focal point of much debate, controversy and anger, provoking celebrities like Elon Musk and Clarkson. God bless him for taking a stand with the farmers of Britain and shutting down that loathsome BBC reporter. Bravo, mate. I have consistently cautioned against any hatred of the miry government and will continue to do so. Peter teaches not to despise government or speak evil of dignitaries and our masters to whom we should be subject, even if they are froward, so that we are blameless before God and of holy temperament, as I always advocate. But when governmental laws blatantly and very overtly defy the commandments, or go a step further with some of the unspeakable evils you'll discover in this video, contract terminated. Your abominable heresies forfeit your right to any position of authority amongst my fellow brothers and sisters. Ye have become mine enemy and that of all Christians, for which we shall not acquiesce, but condemn and reprove. Compliance works both ways, I'm afraid, and when you choose to covet, steal, revel like adolescents, punish the poor and needy, discriminate, indoctrinate, falsely accuse and defame, and physically abuse and shame, it's time to rebuke a shameful government for its misconduct and erroneous precepts, because I certainly won't endorse that or teach my followers to submit to your false teachings, and neither would Peter. You've lost my vote and the vote of the kingdom. You have chosen excommunication to cut yourselves off from God, Christians, and anything righteous or just with these indisputable crimes. In light of recent disasters under Keir Starmer's little pageantry, I thought now would be opportune to gather my findings for this video. My little list I've been working on for quite some time to give you this comprehensive expose of a government that isn't just, that is drunk, as you'll soon find out, and I literally mean drunk because that's what they get up to on a very regular basis at Parliament, and that is overwhelmingly wrong, but worse than that, tries to legalise its wrongdoings and encourage its populace to walk in them, down an immoral path. This is the example they have set and are continuing to implement. They now endorse crime and make it their law. That's the stage we are at now in this country, and our own government is responsible for bringing out the worst in people. Be warned that the following shocking revelations will unnerve you. Sadly, you will lose your composure. You will get angry. It's inevitable, for which I apologise. I bring this troubling information very reluctantly, but do so because what would typically be law-abiding, submissive Christians are now confronted with the moral dilemma of choosing between the laws of this government and man, which are now heretical crimes against humanity, or the unequivocal laws of God and Jesus. Yes, Acts 5:29 is upon us, and I'm preparing you for this eventuality arriving quite literally on your doorstep. Now this unlawful precedent has been enacted and is being imposed on us all. Pretty soon, every one of us will have to choose between either a fixed penalty, a criminal record, or breaking God's laws and living in unrighteousness. That will be the choice and your test of faith, and this will most likely happen within the next 5 to 10 years. They're going to try and take us away for no reason other than our professed faith in Christ. We will be persecuted for his namesake, just like the disciples and early Christians, and all those very unfortunate Christians in the Middle East, China and Africa right now. Yes, we are frightfully close to seeing that in this country as well, hence the importance of your awareness. We are talking years here, not decades. Producing this video has been a major struggle because it was too hard to digest. I kept walking away from this. I wanted to do something else. I have been in deep prayer and Bible study just to try and raise my spirit after constantly battling with these deliberately confrontational and repugnant laws. It still baffles me that anyone could even conceive of them. Merely attempting to read them is a challenge, as many Brits well know. The way they are worded is obnoxiously formal and confusing to the point where it's incomprehensible. You get agitated because of how deliberately wrong it all is, and you literally feel repulsed. They are repulsive, hence why I need the word as a remedy. There's something seriously sinister and crafty when a minister reads any kind of document and it makes him physically sick, and furthermore, when police officers also struggle to read them, as you'll see in the upcoming footage. These documents are the most depressing, horrible and ungodly reads at best, and at worst, well, they're the worst laws ever, basically. Thought crime is now a thing in this country. We now have Stasi police officers straight out of East Germany patrolling our streets. And no joke, it is worse. Worse than George Orwell's 1984. It is worse than we could have ever imagined, and you'll see why. It's at the end of my list, and there are no words to describe this evil. In fact, no other government throughout history has even contemplated anything like it. It's that diabolical. Evidently, there is foul play here. It's been going on for a very long time. We are at war with these dark principalities of Ephesians 6, and there is so much more to this than merely incompetent MPs making fools of themselves. I would have to concur, after compiling this list, that the best solution to the following crimes on humanity that have literally made me sick to my stomach is what Mr. Farage's Reformation Party is proposing. I don't like to delve into politics, I'm a man of God, but the name of his party couldn't be more befitting. A reformation is exactly what this country needs. Just as there was Martin Luther's reformation of an apostate church, so too do we now need a reformation of the treasonous UK government, hopefully by edict of the King, whom I was expecting to rule. And I would have thought he wanted the same when he had the opportunity. Reformation is now the only way. How else are we to abolish these heinous laws? They are a virus. The spirit of wickedness is ingrained within and must be expunged. And if Mr. Farage is successful, I pray that the first thing he does is abolish all these unholy, unjust, unspeakable and now unthinkable crimes against humanity. Here's my list. Labour aside, this has been a law in this repugnant country since I was a boy, and up until the PSPO of 2014, you won't believe that one, it was probably the worst law of this country. It's known as adverse possession. Speaking of immoral paths and setting the worst example for mankind, Adverse possession is a law in this country that essentially legitimizes and furthermore promotes the act of illicitly acquiring another person's property without their knowledge. This represents a clear violation of basic ethical principles, including the 8th and 10th commandments not to covet what is thy neighbour's and steal. I shouldn't have to remind anyone of that, especially not anyone in Parliament. But here goes. I guess I'm going to have to put it up on the screen for you. Oh dear. You must be joking. Alas, this is something I have personally witnessed. I have seen this government turn men through this law into covetous thieves. And what's worse is people think they have a right to do it. There's no shame whatsoever for their self-conscious unrighteousness. Quite the opposite, in fact. They believe that because the government has made it a law to covet and steal, that it's now permissible, and that there are no moral implications. That isn't going to save you on Judgment Day, you know. It is very foolish and naive to disingenuously believe that adherence to sly governmental laws that provide loopholes can absolve anyone of moral wrongdoing. Adverse possession is, without a doubt, a moral transgression, a euphemistic legal term for an inherently unrighteous act. One cannot ever hide behind such a false decree, nor escape accountability for such forthright hypocrisy. And I'll be calling each of these on my list decrees or simply crimes from here on, because they aren't laws in any sense of the word. Crime number 2, theft, also known as ULEZ. Oh dear Mr. Khan. I don't really need to say much on this. Everybody knows the situation with ULEZ and how wrong it is. It is robbery, there'll be no mistake on that. It is criminal, and what on earth is this man still doing as the Mayor of London? He must be the most hated man in this country alongside Keir Starmer, which is really not good. Jesus says that he who hates his brother is a murderer and does not have eternal life abiding in him. 1 John 3:15. But when so much of a population has chosen this path, you have to consider what has caused them to hate this much, because therein lies the root of the problem. And once again, it's the UK government. It is responsible for causing this much hatred amongst its populace, for which these MPs will be held accountable. So not only is it theft, which they've now implemented in Birmingham and Bristol as well, but they have incited this much hatred and violence with their own unlawful actions. They're in a lot of trouble spiritually. Thankfully, many people are refusing to pay it. Well, they can't. They don't have the money to pay it. And this is something this retarded government just doesn't seem to understand. It has extorted people beyond their means, and you're simply not going to get it because no one has it. I mean, it's shocking enough that they can't seem to grasp the 8th and 10th commandments, but to fail infancy level mathematics as well is beyond belief. These next 3 are frightfully reminiscent of Sodom and Gomorrah, as Jesus warns will be the case in the end times. Crime number 3, the Vagrancy Act. As I mentioned in a previous video, the Sodomites outlawed charity and would punish anyone who was charitable. Shockingly, the UK government once again likes to outdo that and says that anyone who is living on the streets in need of charity and a roof over their heads is a criminal. When I briefly discussed this with a pastor at a local church I recently attended, he informed me that they also have a yellow card scheme. The police will issue the poor and needy who can't afford the ridiculous sums to rent just a small accommodation with a yellow card and force them to move out of a designated zone. In doing so, not only are they convicting these very vulnerable and unfortunate individuals, but they falsify the homelessness statistics for that area. This is the kind of corrupt and dishonest behaviour by the UK police. Now they prey on the poor and homeless and call them criminals when it is them who have become instruments of evil for the mystics pulling on their strings. Jesus Christ was homeless. Matthew 8:20, Luke 9:58. If he were here today, he would be falsely convicted as a criminal by the UK police. Crime number 4, the pageantries. I have received much backlash and hatred over this in the past, under the misconception that because of my faith I have singled out those who are woke. I can assure you that that is definitely not the case. I'm a firm believer in equal rights and equal wrongs, and I've acknowledged my own, unlike some. But what I certainly won't do is deny that that is exactly what they are, and that you need to repent of them. Parading one's sins in a very prideful manner is a very foolish and unpardonable mistake. If you don't seek forgiveness for them, then you won't get it. Simple logic, really. I'd rather not be an idiot. I'm certainly not proud of my sins. This is completely the wrong attitude. So when I see a persistent horde of people who are once again encouraged by this treacherous, miry government to flout these perversions and teach them to our children, it is my duty as the teacher of righteousness that I am to correct them all out of love and compassion, so that they don't perish and fall victim to their own excessive pride and lust. This was the primary reason for Sodom's annihilation: pride. It was their pride and haughty spirits, Proverbs 16:18, and they refused to make amends. They refused to repent. Now, why on earth these disgraceful displays of lust and perversion haven't been detained and fined for their indecent exposure in front of children, I don't know. It is a law, it's called outraging public decency, and it isn't being upheld. Furthermore, it's on the police.uk website, so I suggest you start doing your jobs at these pride parades, please, because it's negligence. Crime number 5. Parliamentary alcoholism. Further juvenile behaviour within the UK government can be located at Parliament itself. Every fortnight it engages in a free alcohol binge sesh, which apparently includes many MPs and journalists, and most likely led to the Partygate scandal during lockdown. Yes, this has been a long-standing tradition in Parliament. They all get mullered, basically. When I first heard about Partygate and saw some of the evidence, my initial instinctive outrage wasn't about lockdown, but the fact that they had a designated wino wheeling a suitcase across Downing Street to fill it up with booze at the nearest off-licence and bring it back for their excessive partying. You what? That is the behaviour of alcoholics, I think you'll find. No other workplace in the country would tolerate it. Oh, but if you work at 10 Downing Street, it's fine. What on earth are these MPs doing getting absolutely hammered? That was more worrying to me than them breaking the lockdown rules, as bad as that was, which is why I investigated it more. And look at all of this. What a disgraceful government. What are they, teenagers? Haven't they grown out of getting drunk every weekend? I quit drinking 10.5 years ago. There's no need for it, especially with the vast diversification of alcohol-free beverages these days, which taste pretty much the same. And if you're going to be in Parliament governing the country, deciding when we go to war and make the most important decisions, that are going to affect every one of us, temperance should be a prerequisite. Temperance is also one of the fruits of the Spirit, and what a surprise, this UK government clearly has none of it. It's no wonder everything's a shambles. They're all getting off their faces. Additionally, alcohol is the most destructive drug ever, worse than any Class A. It's responsible for so much social devastation, including violence on the streets, domestic abuse and child molestation, as well as being the #1 cause of motoring accidents. And then there's the permanent pain and embarrassment it brings to its victims. But the government don't seem to care. Boris likes a party, yeah, all of Parliament does apparently. It's extremely worrying. They're dossing about at Commons and they're dossing about in the rec room that is number 10 Downing Street apparently. And these are the people responsible for running the country and have enacted these insane laws. Crime number 6, squatters' rights. Squatters' rights. A friend of mine who works on my house every now and then, he has had an issue like this. A man, one of his tenants, was squatting in his house. What happened was he allowed the tenant to stay there for a few months rent free, just until he sorted himself out. Did this out of the kindness of his own heart. And what happened? The man decided to squat, and it got to the stage where Steve tried to get in through one of the windows, and that's when there was violent opposition. That this man started getting quite angry and you can't come in here, and that was the case. He wasn't allowed to get in through his own window into his house just to see what was going on in there. Under this terrible law, squatting under law, look at this. A long-term squatter can become the registered owner of property or land they've occupied without the owner's permission? No, I don't think so. Anyway, this man who decided to squat, when it was finally resolved, there were thousands of pounds worth of damage. The place was a mess. Apparently there was excrement all over the floor, rubbish everywhere. This is what squatters do, okay? And they do it on purpose, yeah, just to anger the landlord. And this is a law in this country. They're allowed to do this. They're entitled to do this. It is one of the worst laws in the UK. It's similar to adverse possession. I think you can then claim adverse possession once you've been squatting for so long. It might be down here somewhere. I saw it here. If the property is unregistered, just all of this, all these violations that they try and pass as law. Yeah, there we go. Look, fill in a form for adverse possession. If you've successfully squatted continuously for 10 years, or 12 if it's not registered, you can claim it. But what is infuriating about this law is in order to claim it, it has to be done without the owner's permission. Gee whiz. So it doesn't say find the owner's permission, seek the owner's permission first, as it should. No, it says, oh, you can get away with this if you do it without the owner's permission. Horrendous laws. This government is terrible. This is on the gov.uk website. Yeah. Absolute disgrace once again. When will it end? When will it end? Next up is two-tier policing, especially against Christians. Now, this is what inspired me to do this video. I saw the Newcastle street preacher being treated unfairly and the police grabbing him and pulling him away. So yeah, that's what inspired this. I thought, this government has enacted these insane laws. The people at that Pride event, a lot of them were indecent. That was actually illegal. The way a lot of them were dressed, the things they were saying in broad daylight with children present. I mean, they should have been cautioned at least by the police, but they were just standing there watching it all happen. And then who did they go for? The Christian preacher. And of course, Islamic preachers are allowed to run rife, preach hate, and the false teachings of Islam in this country. We're not a Christian nation anymore. I mean, if any of these police officers had been to the Middle East, they'd have some idea of what's coming. They're all going to have their jobs cut out for them. I think you'll find. In fact, I think you'll find a lot of you will be quitting. Yeah? Because you're going to be overwhelmed. Anyway, here's another one. Another Christian preacher who was assaulted for expressing his beliefs, and then the police arrested him. Oh, isn't that always the way? Yeah. The man who is assaulted gets arrested. Now, I've seen this an awful lot. Not just like Christian preachers. But this is what happens, man. It's not the person who assaults another person. No, it's the assaulted who is then arrested and taken away. It's like, what? That just doesn't make any sense, but that's what the police do. Okay? They don't just do this to Christian preachers. I've seen a similar thing. So, yeah, it's a major thing. Two-tier policing, especially against Christians. Held in a police cell for 13 hours, look. Oh, he criticised Islam. Oh, boo-hoo. Well, maybe you should just deal with it then. Yeah, this guy may have criticised Islam, but these Islamic preachers are preaching absolute hate and anger. They go beyond criticising, I think you'll find, but will you do anything about it? No. So all he did really was point out the differences in moral standards between Islam and Christianity. That was his offence, was it? Come on. You gotta do better than that. He was then assaulted by people who objected to what he said. Assaulted. One person pushed him from the stepladder he was standing on. Another tore a placard from his hand, injuring him. The police were then called, and incredibly, despite the fact that Moodley had been a victim of crime, assault, he was arrested on suspicion of racially or religiously aggravated harassment without violence. Oh, boo-hoo, the Muslims are upset. Good! After he was arrested, police instructed staff at Bristol University to dispose of the signs he used while preaching. The truth is that for Christians, two-tier policing has been a reality for a long time. More arrests. I think I know who this woman is. Yeah. I've seen her being assaulted, and it is violent. Muslims assaulting this woman. Strip searched by the police after being assaulted by these Muslim men. Oh dear. So this woman was fearing for her life, and the police were far more concerned with protecting the feelings of Muslims. Dude, this behaviour from the police is criminal. And this one is coming up, folks. This was next on my list. Okay, one of the next ones on my list. Yep. You wouldn't believe it. Army veteran Adam Smith Connor convicted for silently praying in his head as well. Okay, he wasn't silently praying out loud, but in his head, in a buffer zone in Bournemouth. He was arrested for this. Yeah, wrong thoughts. Which of course they aren't, they're right thoughts. Yeah, we have thought crime in this country now, folks. Okay, I'm not exaggerating. That's coming up. This one's next. Now, if you're a parent, I have no idea how you can even contemplate taking your child to a school in this country. How could you? It's not just here, it's in the States as well. This woke garbage is infesting our schools. If I had kids, there's no way, absolutely no way they'd be going to school. End off. Okay. Not only do they teach them complete rubbish that they'll never need in life, okay. I mean, I've considered my own little curriculum for my children when the time comes, if the time comes. I wouldn't be teaching them most of what they teach in schools, what I was taught in school, algebra, all that other stuff you do in maths that's completely pointless unless you want to be a maths teacher. Oh yeah, what percentage of the population wants to be a maths teacher? No, they'd be doing accounts, thank you very much. Finance, risk management, IT, video editing, this kind of stuff. Sports, I'd still teach my child sports, yeah. Most of what you learn in school is a complete waste, and they know that, okay? And this has been an agenda since the 60s, okay? The hippie revolution, yeah, that was all staged, that was all done deliberately, okay? Check out, what is it? The CIA had an agenda to influence culture. Stanley Kubrick There's a Stanley Kubrick documentary. Yeah, it's all explained in there, and it makes absolute sense. And then you think, hang on, this is what they did with the education system. Okay? Their agenda was to completely waste a child's life, okay, growing up, by teaching them stuff that was completely pointless. Alright? So that you don't really get anywhere in life. You're not really learning enough of anything, and then you're completely useless when it comes to being put out in the workplace. The idea is to just extort you even more with higher education, which again is more waste of time. And now look what they're doing. Now look what it is. It's woke indoctrination in schools. Okay. So when I was younger, the agenda was to just waste your time at school. Okay. Not really doing anything. Just meandering around, yeah. Waltzing through your formative years. I mean, you weren't really getting a proper education, okay? It is no coincidence that you don't see apprenticeships anymore. Okay, it is an agenda. They've done away with apprenticeships on purpose because they don't want you to succeed. They want you to be docile. They want you to be useless eaters so that they can enforce their statism. It's been the agenda since the 60s. Check out the Stanley Kubrick documentary on that. So, what are they teaching in schools now? All this woke stuff, oh my word. Let's have a little look, shall we? 3 cabinet ministers have been warned they could face court action. Good. After being accused of letting woke indoctrination run riot in British schools. So it's good that they are facing court action, but ultimately it's bad because we have ministers doing this. So it's prevalent. This is going to continue. Look at this. My 20 years of teaching A-level came to an abrupt end when I was sacked and marched off the premises for refusing to call a girl a boy. Oh my word. And how old was this girl? Eh? Was she a minor? In which case you have a duty to bring them up right. The education department can waffle on endlessly about their meaningless guidance to schools. In practice, schools and their trans activist allies are being allowed to run riot. Of course they are. Oh dear. If you've still not figured that out yet, then I don't know what planet you're on. How can you take your kid to a school? No way. Oh, look at this. The law is quite clear. Political indoctrination in schools is illegal and must not be tolerated by ministers, officials and head teachers. No, the law is quite clear that you're going to do exactly that. Yeah, exactly. Yet it continues to ignore its own laws. Crime number 9. Public Spaces Protection Order. Well, I never thought I'd see the day where prayer is criminalised and Orwellian, Stasi-like thought crimes are introduced. But that was yesterday, folks. Yesterday. Or to be more precise, 10 years ago. Under the Public Spaces Protection Order, PSPO, it is a false crime in the UK to silently pray in your head, and you will receive a fixed penalty notice and further escalation if the police choose to persist with their false allegations under this wicked new law. Well, you don't have to speculate as to what I'm thinking, cop. I'll just tell you straight to your face. And if you try and prosecute me like this, believe me, I will get my accusations worth. Absolutely. And then some. And I will revel in it. Thank you very much. And if you don't believe me on this, I'm about to show you some footage where this has happened several times to random innocents minding their own business at the side of the road. Barristers have also spoken upon this. You can find that online. One man was prosecuted and taken to court. He's a war veteran. He was praying silently outside an abortion clinic and was criminally charged. You can't make this stuff up. So it's very disturbing, but somebody actually has. What kind of sick weirdo tries to ban silent prayer and enforce thought crimes? Like I said, these victims are given fixed penalties, they are fined, so again, it's theft. And one of the most disturbing parts of all this is the emotional conflict on these police officers' faces as they painstakingly struggle to issue these ridiculous charges. It's embarrassing to watch. Take a look.
Are you here as part of an organised protest?
No.
You're not. Are you part of a pro-life organisation or pro-choice organisation?
I am, but I'm not here in that capacity.
Okay. Are you protesting?
No.
Are you here to pray for the lives of unborn children?
It's a little bit leading, but no, I'm not.
Okay. Can your actions be carried out elsewhere?
I can pray elsewhere, but I want to pray here today.
Right. Why have you chosen the location here to stand?
You know this is an abortion centre that I'm standing outside of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you aware that there is a public space protection order in place here?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you aware that you're breaching the public protection order?
I'm not, no.
Will you move from here to outside of the exclusion zone?
I don't believe I need to.
Okay. If not, why are you not willing to move outside of the exclusion zone?
Because I don't believe I need to. I believe I've got a right to be here.
Okay. Right. If you believe that you're present to protest in any form, obviously we're going to need to issue with a fixed penalty notice.
Sorry, can you explain that again?
Yes. If you believe that you're present to protect in any form.
If I believe what? Sorry.
If you believe that you are present to protest.
No,
in any
I'm
form,
not here to protest. No.
Right. Well, you're in the PSPO. You're breaching it.
I'm in the zone.
Yes.
But I'm not protesting.
Yes. So you're going to be given a fixed penalty notice today. Okay. That'll be given to you with the offence and failing to comply with the Public Space Protection Order under the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act 2014. And my colleague's going to issue with the ticket.
Just to make it clear, I'm not protesting. Okay.
But you know you can't be here. I'll just point out the PSPO from there. I think you've seen that before.
I know there's a zone here, but I'm not protesting within the zone. I'm just silently praying.
What's your date of birth, Isabel?
You're not the thought police.
I understand where you're going, but we're not the police, we're not Judge Jury. But what we are asking you to do as an employee of PCP,
right,
is to ask you to move on if we consider that your presence within the PSPO has either or is likely to cause harassment, alarm or distress. That's what we're employed to do.
How could my presence standing here possibly in any way, shape or form be considered harassment, intimidation?
It's the praying that you've admitted to, sir.
Behold, this absolute disgrace of a government that promotes covetousness and theft, revels in its drunkenness, hosts the most abominable and indecent displays on its streets in front of kids for which it actually has a law for but doesn't uphold, infests schools with woke perversions that include homosexuality and barbaric dismemberment, criminalises homelessness, prayer and thought itself, discriminates against Christians especially, whilst extremist Muslims it previously classified as terrorists are left to run rife and defile the country, robs from its own citizens and causes nationwide fury as a result, and that lies through its teeth under the incumbent highly questionable dictator of the working party that has a history of socialist ideologies, who needs to be tried for high treason in a court of law. There's no way you went under my radar, pal. Did anyone actually trust this man, including the ones who voted for him? No. Everyone knew he was going to be a big mistake, and one that has cost us all very dearly. It's time to abolish all of this. It all needs to be scrapped. We need a reform. Farage is right. Look at how appalling all of this is. Look at the state of this country and its heinous laws. It is a country that would criminalise Jesus for being homeless on the streets and would then arrest him for praying and performing his duties as a prophet and God. Homelessness is even becoming the norm. Young girls are buying vans to live in. I couldn't believe that when I saw it. I've heard guys contemplate it, but girls? And it's not because they can't afford a house. No, they can't afford the rent. They can't afford the council tax, the energy bills, and now the most basic human need, water. Water's going up now as well. Crime number 10. This just in, at crime number 10, I just discovered it today, and you're really not going to like this one. Grocery tax. From the 1st of January 2025, Labour is introducing a grocery tax which will put our food bills up considerably. So try and have a good Christmas. I'll be helping the vagrants on Christmas Day. Who knows, at this rate next year I might be one of them. Keir Starmer, you disgraceful human being. Was it worth the reputation you've gained yourself? Don't think so.